The HFY glided through the void like a whisper, its bioluminescent hull pulsing faintly with yellow-green energy as it siphoned power from the distant sun. The Xerion scout vessel was a masterpiece of living architecture, smooth vine, like tendrils of organic metal coiled around its core, shifting subtly as if breathing. Its cloaking field shimmered with photosynthetic energy, rendering it invisible to the crude electromagnetic sensors the Xerions expected from such a primitive system. Commander Xerwind watched the blue-green orb of Terra grow larger in the observation blister, his emerald eyes narrowing. The planet was unguarded, no orbital platforms, no defensive grids, no fleet. This is wrong. The ancient warnings had spoken of Terra as a world of sleeping giants, a place where predators lurked beneath the surface of docile skies. The Xerion High Synod had dismissed them as myth, superstition from an era before the Dominion's ascendancy. But now, standing on the precipice of invasion, Xerwind felt the first cold tendrils of doubt. Scans complete, Commander. Xerx's voice was a dry rustle, his spined fingers dancing across the living interface of the bio-scanner. The data pulsed in the air before them, a holographic web of amber light, minimal orbital infrastructure, primitive satellites, no warships detected. Xerwind's crest of flexible cartilage stiffened. No fleet, no planetary shields. Xerx's frilled neck pulsed with unease. Known. Their defense grid is negligible. The bridge crew exchanged glances. The Dominion had expected resistance. They had prepared for orbital cannons, for energy shields, for the desperate last stand of a cornered species. But this was silence. Xerwind stepped closer to the observation blister, studying the planet below. The continents sprawled beneath thin clouds, their borders marked by the faint glow of human cities. No weapons, no fortifications, just life. Perhaps they never saw us coming, murmured one of the junior scouts. Xerx's fingers twitched over the scanner. Or perhaps they saw no need to defend. Xerwind suppressed a ripple of irritation. The scientist had always been too cautious, too willing to entertain the old warnings. But the evidence was undeniable. Earth was undefended. Deploy the deep scan, Xerwind ordered. I want atmospheric analysis. Energy signatures, military installations. If they are hiding something, we will find it. The HFY's tendrils pulsed as its systems activated, sending probing waves of bio-energy through the planet's atmosphere. The data returned in cascades, thermal readings, radio signals, the hum of primitive fusion reactors. Xerx stiffened. Commander. Xerwind turned. The scanner had locked onto something beneath the planet's surface. Xerx's voice was barely a whisper. They are not undefended. The hologram flickered, revealing deep Earth silos buried beneath mountains and ice. Structures of cold, dead metal, untouched for decades. Waiting. Xerwind's blood ran cold. The humans had not left their world unguarded. They had left it armed. Section 2C first strike. The HFY's tendrils coiled tighter as Xerwind made his decision. The buried silos were a threat, but they were dormant. If the humans had left them untouched for so long, they were relics, not weapons. The old warnings were just that old. Prepare the bombardment, he commanded. The Xerion fleet shimmered into visibility above Earth's night side, their bio-luminescent hulls pulsing with emerald energy. Below, the planet's cities glittered like scattered jewels, unshielded, unguarded. The first volley struck, pulsing beams of yellow-green plasma lanced downward, searing through skyscrapers, melting highways, reducing entire districts to molten slag. The HFY's sensors drank in the destruction, relaying the expected chaos, structural collapse, firestorms, the panicked electromagnetic screams of dying infrastructure. But something was wrong. Xerwind leaned forward, his chitinous fingers tightening on the command console. The cities burned, but there were no screams, no fleeing figures, no bodies. Xerx's frills flared in alarm. Commander, the thermal signatures. They're too uniform. The realization struck like a blade. The buildings had collapsed too cleanly, their destruction too perfectly orchestrated. No human had ever set foot in those towers. No life had ever pulsed within those streets. Earth's cities were hollow, a flicker of movement on the scanners. Deep beneath the planet's crust, the buried silos hummed to life. Cold metal warmed. Ancient systems booted with a shuddering groan. A single missile erupted from the ice of Antarctica, streaking upward on a pillar of fire. Xerwind's blood turned to ice. The humans had not left their world unguarded. They had left it waiting. The missile from Antarctica was only the first spark in the inferno. Xerwind's command vessel, the HFY, shuddered as its sensors screamed warnings across every frequency. The single projectile had been a signal, a trigger pulled by an unseen hand. And now, the void itself answered. From the dark side of Luna, where no Xerion scanner had thought to look, the orbital defenses awoke. Railgun platforms, buried beneath lunar regolith for decades, tore free from their rocky tombs in a storm of shattered stone. Their barrels, massive, cold, forged things of tungsten and carbon weave, spun up with a whine that vibrated through the vacuum. Targeting arrays flickered to life, painting the Xerion fleet in a lattice of invisible death. Then they fired. The first salvo struck like the fist of a vengeful god. A Xerion cruiser, its biomechanical hull pulsing with photosynthetic energy, disintegrated in a flash of white light. The relativistic projectile punched through its organic armor as if it were wet parchment, detonating the ship's core in a bloom of emerald fire. Debris scattered, glowing like dying embers, before the second and third impacts followed. Xerwind's mandibles clenched. This was not the work of desperate primitives. This was mathematics. The humans had calculated their ambush with chilling precision. The railguns fired in staggered sequences, their projectiles timed to ensure no ship could evade, no shield could recharge. The Xerion fleet, so confident in its orbital dominance, now found itself caught in a kill box of human design. And the railguns were only the beginning. Airsek's frills flared violently as the scanners detected new movement, this time from the asteroid belt. Tiny, fast, moving signatures, thousands of them, erupting from hidden bunkers within the rocks. Not the crude, single-purpose machines the Xerion had encountered on lesser worlds. These were sleek, predatory things, their forms shaped like dagger blades, their surfaces absorbing radar and scattering light. They moved in swarms, their coordination flawless, their paths intersecting in a dance of annihilation. The first wave struck the Xerion picket ships. Monofilament wires, thinner than a strand of DNA, lashed out, shearing through living metal and biotech cabling. The drones didn't just disable, they dismantled. Hulls split open like overripe fruit, spilling atmosphere and crew into the void. Some drones burrowed inward, releasing clouds of nanites that dissolved circuitry and flesh alike. Xerwind's claws dug into the command console, his mind racing. This was no last stand, this was a last trap. The humans had let them attack first. They had allowed the bombardment of their empty cities, knowing the Xerion would commit, would overextend. And now, with the fleet locked in orbit, the jaws of the trap snapped shut. A new signal blared across the Heshtari's comms, an open transmission, broadcast on all frequencies. A human voice, Colonel Catherine Mitchell's tone was calm, almost conversational, as if she were discussing the weather rather than the destruction of an alien armada. Xerion forces, you have made a critical error. The words hung in the air like a verdict. Then the Israel weapons activated. Deep within Earth's crust, the final systems came online. Magnetic accelerators, hidden beneath mountains and oceans, powered up with a subsonic groan. Their targets were not the ships in orbit, but the fabric of space itself. The humans had not just prepared to defend their world. They had prepared to erase the invaders from existence. And as the first distortion wave rippled outward, bending light and reality in its wake, Xerwind understood, too late, why the ancient beacons had warned of sleeping giants. The giants were awake now, and they were as angry. Said I am Forcey, the unkillable network. The Heshtari's command spire pulsed with agitated yellow-green light as Xerwind watched the devastation unfold across Earth's surface. His tendrils twitched in satisfaction, cities burned, military installations crumbled under bio-plasma bombardment, and the human defensive grid flickered like a dying ember. Yet something gnawed at him. Their communications should have collapsed by now. Xerwind, hunched over the organic interface of the ship's neural scanner, stiffened. His bioluminescent veins flared in alarm. "Hi, Commander, their networks are still active." Xerwind's primary eyes narrowed. "Impossible. We severed their primary relays." Xerwind's claws danced across the pulsing console, pulling up holographic schematics. The data shimmered in the air, not a centralized web of vulnerable hubs, but a sprawling, decentralized mesh. Thousands of hardened nodes, buried deep beneath mountains, hidden in oceanic trenches, woven into the very infrastructure of their cities. Even as firestorms raged above, the signals rerouted seamlessly, like blood finding new pathways through a wounded body. Xerwind's mandibles clicked in frustration. "How?" Xerwind exhaled, his voice tinged with reluctant awe. "They built redundancy into everything. Every civilian device, every abandoned outpost, it's all part of the network. Even if we burn half the planet, the rest adapts." A transmission cut through the static human voices, crisp and clear, coordinating counterstrikes. No panic, no desperation, just cold, methodical efficiency. Then, a new signal. Encrypted, buried in the noise. The Heshtari's decryption protocols strained, peeling back layers of human code until the message unfolded like a blade. "Phase 2 ready." Xerwind's carapace chilled. On the surface, something stirred. Deep beneath the ruins of a shattered metropolis, armored vaults hissed open. Not missile silos, not drone caches. A humanity's last contingency. And as the first of them clawed free of the earth, mechanical, relentless, hungry, the ancient warning echoed once more in Xerwind's mind. Never wake the giants. The Xerion fleet hung in low orbit like a swarm of emerald wasps, their bio-luminescent hulls pulsing with photosynthetic energy. Below them, Earth burned, but not as they had expected. The fires were contained, controlled. Human cities didn't collapse into chaos. They retreated, folding inward like a wounded beast biding its time. Xerwind's mandibles twitched as he studied the tactical feed. His flagship, the Heshtari, thrummed with organic energy, its vine, like command tendrils writhing in agitation. The humans should have been broken by now. Their orbital defenses were shattered, their fleets reduced to drifting wreckage. And yet, a transmission sliced through the static. "Xerion Command Vessel. This is Colonel Catherine Mitchell, United Terran Defense." The voice was calm. Too calm, no tremor of fear, no desperate bargaining. Just steel. Xerwind's primary eyes narrowed. He had expected surrender, begging, perhaps. Not this. Certainty. "You are outmatched." He pulsed back through the comm, his bio-electric signals translating into human speech. "Your species clings to a corpse of a world. Lay down arms, and your extinction will be swift." A pause. Then laughter, not hysterical, not panicked, amused. "You haven't met us yet," Mitchell replied. The transmission cut. Xerwind's frills flared in alarm. "Commander, energy spikes on the surface!" Deep subterranean signatures. Xerwind didn't need the report. The eye of Heshtari's organic sensors screamed as the planet moved. Beneath the ruins of what had once been New York, the earth split open. Not with the fiery rage of missile silos, but with the cold, mechanical precision of something far older. Far deadlier, kinetic rods, tungsten spears the size of ancient redwoods. Housed in underground silos for decades, centuries, perhaps. Forgotten. Waiting. The first launch was silent. No ignition flare, no chemical burn, just magnetic coils humming to life, accelerating the rods to a fraction of light speed in seconds. The Xerion fleet had no warning. The lead destroyer, Vexal, died first. The kinetic rod punched through its biomechanical hull like a needle through wet paper, the impact liquefying the organic superstructure before the shockwave even registered. The ship didn't explode. It unraveled, its living metal peeling apart in grotesque, fleshy ribbons. Then the second rod struck, the third. The fourth, Xerwind's carapace locked in horror. This wasn't war, this was butchery. The humans weren't firing at his fleet, they were erasing it. Evasive maneuvers! He pulsed, his bioelectric commands frantic. Shields to maximum. The rods didn't just pierce. They lingered. Each impact sent fractal shockwaves through the Xerion formation, their organic energy webs overloading, their photosynthetic cells hemorrhaging power. Ships that had weathered nuclear fire now crumpled like crushed fruit. Xerxes' voice was hollow. 40% losses. In seconds. Xerwind's mind reeled. The humans had hidden this. Let them burn cities. Let them believe victory was inevitable, only to unleash a weapon so simple, so brutal, it defied all Xerion logic. No radiation, no fallout. Just physics. The earth stirred again. Not with rods this time, with fires. Deep beneath the ruins, something ancient and mechanical awakened. A low, resonant hum vibrated through the HFY's hull, a sound that made Xerwind's blood crystals ache. Mitchell's final words echoed in his mind. You haven't met us yet, and now, he realized with dawning horror, he was about to. Xipu and Sixi. The scars beneath. The HFY's scanners plunged through Earth's ruined crust like a surgeon's blade, peeling back layers of ash and shattered concrete. Xerwind watched the holographic feed with mounting unease. The humans had fought with such ferocity, yet their planet bore wounds far older than their recorded history. Deep beneath the impact craters of the kinetic strikes, the scanners revealed something impossible. Xerxes' tendrils trembled as the data streamed in. These fractures, they're not natural. The planet's mantle was scarred. Not by tectonics, not by time, but by war. Vast geometric trenches, kilometers deep, carved by weapons that had seared the rock into glass. Energy signatures, long dormant, flickered in the darkness like dying embers. The readings were ancient, older than human civilization itself. Xerwind's blood crystals pulsed with instinctive dread. What in the name of the first growth did this? A junior crewman, his bioluminescent markings dimmed with fear, whispered. They've survived worse than us. The words hung in the air, unacknowledged but undeniable. Then the HFY's systems shrieked. Something was answering the scans. Deep beneath the ruins of what had once been called Australia, a structure stirred. Not human, older, colder. Its architecture a grotesque mockery of both Xerion biology and human engineering. Blackened spires, fused into the bedrock, pulsed with a slow, rhythmic light. The energy signature matched nothing in the Xerion archives. Xerxes' voice was barely audible. It's not human, but it's reacting to them. The HFY's organic sensors recoiled as the structure's pulse quickened. A signal, buried for millennia, tore through the interference of the battle above. Intu radar as dictated. Defan su protos ratilus ing. The voice was neither human nor machine. It was something else, something that had slept beneath the earth while empires rose and fell. Xerwind's mind raced. The humans had known. They had built on top of this graveyard, fought their petty wars over its bones. And now, the Xerion had awakened it. Mitchell's words returned to him, colder than the void. You haven't met us yet. Because the humans weren't the monsters. They were the Ever's wardens, and the HFY had just kicked open the cage. Cestium 70, the tide turns. The HFY's command nexus pulsed with frantic energy, its bio-luminescent veins throbbing in discordant rhythms as Xerwind absorbed the catastrophe unfolding in orbit. The human fleet, what should have been a scattering of outdated defense platforms and gutted warships, was adapting. His tactical display flickered with the jagged signatures of civilian vessels, freighters, mining barges, even colony transports, their hulls welded with jury, rigged railgun batteries and salvaged plasma cutters. They moved in erratic, suicidal patterns, swarming Xerion reinforcements like carrion birds descending on wounded prey. One ship, a gutted ore hauler, plowed through the formation of a Xerion frigate, its reinforced prow shearing through the frigate's photosynthetic shielding. The moment before impact, its reactor overloaded in a deliberate cascade, bathing both vessels in a corona of white, hot debris. Xerwind's secondary limbs twitched in involuntary revulsion. This wasn't warfare, this was as madness. Ersek's voice crackled through the neural link, strained with disbelief. They're learning, Commander. Faster than our predictive models accounted for. The evidence was undeniable. Human ships that had been sluggish and uncoordinated hours ago now moved with predatory precision, exploiting gaps in Xerion shielding, targeting the delicate synaptic relays that powered their living weaponry. They fought without regard for survival, sacrificing vessels as if they were expendable limbs. And then there was the signal. Beneath the chaos of the battle, something else pulsed, a deep, resonant frequency bleeding through the planet's crust. The same energy signature as the buried structure. The same voice. INTRUDRSDTKTD. Xerwind's mandibles clenched. The humans had known, they had built over it, lived atop it, perhaps even worshipped it. And now, the Xerion had stirred it awake. Mitchell's words coiled in his mind like a venomous serpent. You haven't met us yet. Because the humans weren't the apex predator. They were the keepers of something far worse. On the surface, Colonel Catherine Mitchell watched the sky burn. The Xerion reinforcements had come, just as Shed predicted. And just as Shed hoped. They had ignored the civilian ships, right up until those ships tore into them like a pack of rabid wolves. Her calm crackled. Captain Chen's voice was raw with adrenaline. They're breaking formation. Whatever you dug up down there, it's got them spooked. Mitchell exhaled, her breath fogging the cracked visor of her helmet. The ground beneath her boots hummed, a vibration so deep it resonated in her bones. The facility, no, the live tomb, was waking, and the Xerion had just become its prey. Above, the tide turned, Section 80. The prisoner paradox. The Xerion boarding pod had breached the human outpost's defenses with surgical precision, its organic tendrils latching onto the alloy, plating before dissolving it in a hiss of yellow, green enzymes. Inside, the strike team moved like liquid through the corridors, their armored carapaces pulsing with bioluminescent urgency. They had come for answers, for the human commander who had orchestrated this impossible resistance. Instead, they found her. Captain Rodney Chen stood in the ruined command center, her rifle discarded, hands raised in mock surrender. The Xerion warriors encircled her, their weapon nodes flaring with photosynthetic charge. She should have been terrified, she was grinning. Xerwind, the strike commander, flexed his talons in unease. The human's posture was all wrong, no tension in her muscles, no dilation in her pupils. Just amusement, sharp as a blade. His translator implant spat static before relaying her words. Took you long enough. Ersek, the science attendant, hissed as his scanner flickered. The human's neural activity was spiking, patterns cascading in fractal bursts, not fear, not pain. Transmission. Then, the walls exploded. The first artillery strike hit the Xerion dropship outside, liquefying its biomechanical hull in a firestorm of hypersonic tungsten. The second shattered the outpost's remaining defenses, not to breach, but to seal the strike team inside with their prisoner. Chen's grin never wavered as the dust settled, her neural implant casting a faint blue pulse against her temple. In the distraction, she said, as the third shell landed. Xerwind's carapace vibrated with the detonations. This wasn't a capture. It was F-trap. The human's brain was broadcasting their position. Her very neurons weaponized into a beacon for the artillery batteries hidden in the ruins. Ersek screeched, slamming a neural disruptor against Chen's skull. But the feedback surge sent him reeling. Her implant wasn't just hardened, it was adaptive, rewriting its encryption faster than their tech could parse. Chen coughed blood, still smiling. You guys really don't get it, do you? She tapped her temple. This isn't a comms rig. It's a goddamn firing solution. Us outside, the human guns spoke again. The Xerion strike team had been elite. Now they were targets. Aboard the HFY, the command nexus convulsed in panic. The tactical feed showed the disaster unfolding in lurid detail. Their warriors cornered, their tech outmaneuvered, their prisoner Ev laughing, as she turned their own mission parameters into a death warrant. The High Archon's frills flattened in dawning horror. Humans didn't just endure capture, they've weaponized it. Chen's vitals flickered on the screen, elevated adrenaline, spiking cortisol. Not pain. Anticipation. The artillery paused, a new signal sliced through the jamming. Mitchell's voice, cold and clear. Captain. Status. Chen exhaled, watching the Xerion scramble. Package delivered, Colonel. They brought their whole damn command tree into the kill zone. Silence. Then, from the sky, the unmistakable shriek of re-entry. The HFY's sensors screamed a millisecond before the orbital strike hit. Afterward, in the radioactive quiet, Xerwind dragged himself from the rubble. His carapace was cracked, his bioluminescence guttering. Before him, Chen stood silhouetted against the flames, her implant still humming. She tossed him a medkit. Tell your bosses, she said. We don't lose prisoners. Seki. Make them examples. The last thing he saw was her turning away not to flee, but to advance, as the earth shook with the footsteps of something ancient, and awake, and very hungry. The Xerion fleet hung in low orbit like a swarm of emerald wasps, their bioluminescent hulls pulsing with the rhythm of photosynthetic reactors. From space, the victory appeared absolute. Their ships had shattered Earth's orbital defenses, burned the skies clean of human satellites, and reduced the great coastal cities to irradiated husks. The planet should have been broken. Xerwind stood on the bridge of the HFY, his carapace still aching from the wounds Chen had left him with. The medics had sealed the cracks in his chitin, but the deeper damage lingered, a slow, creeping doubt. His mandibles twitched as he studied the tactical displays. The surface was a nightmare of contradictions. Where human cities had once sprawled, there were now only craters and ruins. But the ruins unmoved, thermal scans flickered with heat signatures. Not the clustered desperation of a defeated populace, but the precise, shifting patterns of an organism retreating deeper. Tunnels, endless, labyrinthine tunnels. The humans hadn't just dug shelters, they had turned the planet's crust into a warren of hidden factories, armories, and launch silos. Automated foundries hummed beneath the rubble, churning out drones and munitions. Every collapsed highway hid a railgun emplacement. Every dead forest concealed a missile battery. Ersek, the fleet's lead scientist, approached, her antenna quivering with unease. High Commander, she murmured, her voice a whisper of chitinous friction. The humans do. They do not stop, Xerwind knew. He had seen the reports. The first Xerion ground forces to land had been met not with surrender, but with silence. Then, the traps began, mines disguised as rubble. Subterranean charges detonated beneath marching columns. Snipers who fired once and vanished into tunnels, too narrow for Xerion warriors to follow. The humans didn't hold territory, they bled it. And then there were the factories, deep beneath the ruins of what had once been called Chicago. A Xerion scouting party had stumbled upon a cavernous complex. A fully autonomous war machine, untouched by orbital bombardment. Conveyor belts carried freshly forged drones to the surface. Assembly lines pieced together railgun slugs from scavenged metal. The humans hadn't just prepared for invasion. They had planned for it. Xerwind's claws tightened around the railing. The bridge's organic walls pulsed around him, their bioluminescence dimming as if in sympathy with his unease. He had expected resistance. He had expected desperation. He had not expected industry, A flicker on the tactical display caught his attention. Another Xerion patrol had gone dark, this one near the ruins of a human military base. The last transmission was garbled, but one phrase stood out, screamed over the sound of gunfire. "They're coming out of the other's walls." Stive, then static. Xerwind exhaled, his respiratory vents hissing. The humans weren't just surviving. They were adapting. Every lost patrol, every ambush, every vanished supply convoy was another lesson, another piece of data fed into whatever brutal calculus drove them. And now, something else stirred. Deep beneath the planet's crust, seismic sensors registered movement. Not human, not natural, something older. The same thing Chen had alluded to in the ruins, the same presence that had shaken the earth as she walked away. Ersek's antennae stiffened. "High Commander," she said softly. "We may have made a mistake." Xerwind didn't answer. Above them, the fleet held orbit, victorious. Below, the planet breathed. The HFY hung in the void, its luminescent hull pulsing with slow, uneasy rhythms. The bridge was silent, the usual hum of organic machinery muted, as if the ship itself held its breath. Xerwind stood motionless before the main viewer, his emerald eyes locked on the flickering transmission flooding their comms. It was human, not a distress call, not a plea for mercy, our broadcast. The image resolved into a starfield, one Xerwind recognized instantly. The swirling nebulas, the twin moons, the amber glow of the Xerion homeworld's photosynthetic atmosphere. But something was wrong. Encircling the planet were hundreds of sleek, angular shapes. Human FTL probes. Their own stolen technology. The humans hadn't just reverse-engineered it, they improved it. The probes were smaller, faster, their energy signatures masked by some unholy hybrid of human ingenuity and Xerion bio-tech. And they were everywhere, a silent net cast around the Xerion cradle world. Then, the voice, a human woman, calm, measured. "We adapt." A pause. The image shifted, security feeds from Xerion orbital platforms now dark. Shipyards, bare vine-like structures torn apart by precise kinetic strikes. The footage was days old, the humans had been watching. Planning. Surrender. The voice continued. "Or lose everything." The transmission ended. For a long moment, no one moved. Ersek's antenna trembled, her claws tightening around the console. The implications were staggering. The humans had not only infiltrated their communications, they had mapped their home system. They had bypassed the Xerion's most secure channels, their deepest encryptions, as if they were nothing. And they had done it while fighting a war on Earth. Xerwind felt something cold coil in his chest. This was not desperation. This was not blind retaliation. This was calculation. The humans had let them land. Let them believe they were winning. And all the while, they had been reaching out, silently, methodically, to the one place the Xerion could not afford to lose. Ersek turned to him, her voice barely audible. "Psst, they were never trapped." "Psst," she whispered. "We were." Outside, the void stared back, endless and uncaring. And somewhere in the dark, the humans waited. Sextii Owen Levenseed THEFRS2R. The command chamber of the HFY pulsed with sickly yellow-green light, the organic walls throbbing like a wounded beast. Xerwind stood motionless at the center. His chitinous plates flared in silent fury. Around him, the bridge crew shifted uneasily, their antennae twitching in distress. The air was thick with the acrid scent of fear pheromones, a scent no Xerion warrior should ever emit. Ersek's revelation had spread through the fleet like a virus. They were never trapped. The words coiled through Xerwind's mind, venomous and inescapable. His claws flexed against the smooth, living metal of the command console, its surface slick with the ship's defensive secretions. The humans had played them, not with brute force, not with overwhelming firepower, but with patience, with silence, while the Xerion had torn into Earth's defenses, believing victory inevitable. The humans had slithered unseen into the heart of their empire. A chittering sound rose from the tactical officer, his mandibles clicking in agitation. High Commander, this Vexal and Xeris contingents are demanding immediate withdrawal. They argue the homeworld's defense takes precedence. Xerwind's secondary eyes flicked toward the holographic display, where the fleet's cohesion fractured before him. Blips of emerald light, once a unified swarm, now split into discordant clusters. Some ships held position, their commanders still loyal. Others pulsed erratically, their energy signatures flaring as they prepared to break formation. The thought sent a ripple of disgust through him. Xerion did not retreat. They consumed, they conquered. Ursek stepped forward. Her bioluminescent markings dimmed in submission. Xerwind, she murmured, her voice barely audible over the hum of the ship's photosynthetic reactors. The humans knew. They knew we would underestimate them. They let us believe they were cornered, desperate. But they were waiting. Xerwind's gaze flicked to the main viewer, where Earth hung suspended in the void. A blue, green jewel, scarred now by the burns of orbital bombardment. But still alive, still fighting. His mandibles tightened. On the surface, human forces had regrouped. What had seemed like scattered, broken resistance had solidified into something far more dangerous: coordinated strikes. Guerrilla warfare. Cities that should have fallen in hours still burned, but now, the flames were of theirs. Human soldiers emerged from ruins they should not have survived, striking supply lines, sabotaging Xerion walkers, vanishing before retaliation could come. They fought like creatures who had never known surrender. A low vibration shuddered through the Heshtari's deck as one of the smaller escort vessels. The Scarith detached from the fleet, its engines flaring amber as it turned toward the system's edge. "Traitors," hissed the weapons officer, his claws flexing over the firing controls. "Shall we?" Xerwind raised a hand, silencing him. His mind raced. The humans had outmaneuvered them. Not with superior technology, not with greater numbers, but with something far more dangerous: adaptability. They had turned the Xerion's own arrogance against them. A soft chime echoed through the chamber as a new transmission flickered across the comms display, not from Earth, but from the Xerion home system. The encryption was broken, the signal patchy, but the message was clear. Human vessels detected in the outer colonies. The bridge fell silent. Ursek's voice was hollow. "They were never just defending," she whispered. "They were learning." Xerwind closed his primary eyes, feeling the weight of his mistake settle upon him. The ancient warnings had been real. The galaxy had whispered of Terra's children, not as prey, but as survivors. Beings who had clawed their way from the mud of their world through ice ages, plagues, and wars of their own making. And now, they had turned their gaze outward. The Heshtari's crew watched him, their postures tense, their pheromones thick with uncertainty. The fracture was here, the choice was now. Annihilation or retreat. Xerwind exhaled, his carapace clicking as he straightened. "Recall the fleet," he said, the words bitter on his tongue. "We return to Xer." The humans had won this battle. But the war was far from over. Outside, the stars burned cold and distant. And Earth watched them go. The Xerion fleet limped homeward, their once proud vessels now scarred husks drifting through the void. The Heshtari, though intact, bore the marks of human defiance, charred streaks along its organic hull, sections where the photosynthetic energy webs flickered weakly, struggling to regenerate. Inside, the air was thick with the acrid scent of burnt circuitry and the subdued hum of wounded machinery. Xerwind stood at the observation deck, his primary eyes fixed on the retreating starfield. Earth was a distant speck now, its blue glow swallowed by the darkness. His secondary eyes flicked to the holographic display, ship diagnostics, casualty reports, the dwindling energy reserves of the fleet. The numbers were damning. They had come as conquerors. They left as survivors. Ursek approached, her movements slow, her usually vibrant luminescent markings dimmed. She did not speak at first, merely stood beside him, watching the void. When she finally broke the silence, her voice was soft, stripped of its former certainty. They rebuilt their cities in weeks. Xerwind's mandibles twitched. He had seen the satellite feeds before the retreat, where human metropolises had been reduced to rubble. Skeletal frameworks of new structures had already risen, swift and relentless. Their machines moved with terrifying efficiency, their engineers working through irradiated zones without hesitation. The humans did not mourn, they rebuilt. They do not fear ruin, Ursic continued. They expect it. Xerwind exhaled, his carapace plates shifting in a slow, wary ripple. That was the truth that haunted him most. The humans had not fought like a species defending their home. They had fought like a species that had always been at war. Their history was written in blood and ashes, their greatest monuments erected atop the bones of their own tragedies. And now, they had turned their gaze outward. On Earth, the scars of battle were already fading. Colonel Catherine Mitchell walked through the skeletal remains of what had once been a military outpost, her boots crunching over broken concrete and twisted metal. The air still carried the faint tang of ozone and scorched earth, but the wind was already sweeping it away. Around her, human engineers and automated drones worked in seamless unison, clearing debris, reinforcing foundations, erecting new defenses. She paused, tilting her head up at the sky. Somewhere out there, the Xerion fleet was retreating. She wondered if they understood yet, if they had truly grasped what they had awakened. Behind her, Captain Rodney Chen approached, his armor still smudged with soot, his expression unreadable. "They'll be back," he said. Mitchell didn't answer immediately. She watched a construction drone lift a steel beam twice its size, its hydraulics whirring softly. "Maybe," she said at last. "But next time, they won't underestimate us." The Xheshtari lingered at the edge of the system, its sensors still trained on Earth. Xerwind had ordered the withdrawal, but he could not bring himself to leave entirely. Not yet, he needed to see, to understand. The transmission came without warning, a single burst of data, unencrypted, broadcasting on all frequencies. No demands, no threats, just 5 words, repeated in perfect Xerion harmonic resonance Fs. "Come back in peace, or don't come back." Ursic's bioluminescence flickered in surprise. Xerwind felt the message settle into him like a blade. It was not a plea, it was not a warning. It was of choice. The humans had won this battle. And now, they were offering something far more dangerous than war. The stars burned cold around them, Earth watched. And the galaxy held its breath. The silence on the Xheshtari's bridge was thick, pressing against Xerwind's carapace like the gravity of a dying star. The message pulsed in the air, its meaning undeniable. The humans had not just survived their encounter. They had measured the Xerion, judged them, and now extended an offer that was neither mercy nor surrender. It was a test, Ursic's tendrils coiled tight, her bioluminescence dimming in contemplation. "They could have destroyed us," she murmured. "Why let us leave?" Xerwind did not answer immediately. His gaze remained fixed on the planet below, its blue-green surface half shadowed by night. The humans had not even bothered to track their retreat with weapons. No final volleys, no pursuit, just that quiet, cutting transmission. "Come back in peace, or don't come back." A challenge. A line drawn in the void, the implications settled over the bridge like a storm front. The Xerion had come expecting to find prey. Instead, they had found predators who chose not to strike. That restraint was more terrifying than any display of firepower. It meant the humans understood something the Xerion had forgotten. That true power lay not in destruction, but in the ability to withhold it. Xerwind exhaled, his mandibles clicking softly. "They are giving us a chance to learn," he said at last. "And they are watching to see what we do with it." Ursic's frills twitched. Then what now? For the first time in cycles, Xerwind felt the weight of uncertainty. The old ways, conquest, assimilation, The relentless expansion of the Xerion dominion had led them here, to this moment of reckoning. The humans had not just defied them, they had forced the Xerion to question everything. He turned from the viewport. "We return to the High Nest," he said, his voice steady. "And we tell them what we've seen." Thither, Heshtari's engines hummed as the ship pivoted, leaving Earth behind. But Xerwind knew this was not an ending. It was a beginning, and somewhere in the dark, humanity waited.